Vertigo Nation, welcome back to another episode. This is your host, Sean. I am going to be hanging with y'all for the next, I don't know, however long we let this thing rip. If you're new here, go ahead right now, hit the subscribe button. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Vertigo is definitely the hottest pod that will make your head spin. So, go ahead. I'm giving you a minute. Not getting into the topic. Do it now. Hit the subscribe button. All right. Now that that's taken care of, today you're in for a little bit of a treat. This is a solo episode with just the thoughts and the mad ramblings of myself. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So actually, one of the things that I've been thinking about and wanting to get on and kind of talk about is influencing. Influencing is a thing. And I got to be honest, it really kind of took me a little bit to really understand. Now, obviously, this is not a new phenomenon. This is something that's been happening, gosh. I mean, I remember, so I talk about, my kiddos all the time. Specifically, I think about my boys, and I remember Maddox used to, watch YouTube, and specifically, I think it was, PewDiePie, I think was his name. He was a gamer, and so I remember him. I think he played, I can't even remember what the game was that he played. PewDiePie. I don't know if anyone remembers him, but I think there was a downfall with that dude. There was some controversy and whatnot that came up, which is kind of foreshadowing into what I'm going to talk about here. But I just want to also acknowledge, as I bring up some of these names, that I know that they may not be the most popular now because of things that have come up, but at the time that they were relevant, they were like hugely popular, right? He was one of them. So I guess my point in saying this is these guys now, so, Maddox was fairly young. He must have been probably, maybe preteen, middle school age, 7th to 8th grade, somewhere around that, maybe even a little younger, 5th or 6th grade, maybe. For Sean and, Zach, they weren't, I don't know that they were huge fans, but I definitely remember them talking about Jake and Logan Paul on YouTube for sure. And, having some interest, at least in them. So influencing, I guess my point is because now my boys are, in their 20s and obviously well out of school at this point. And so we saw this trend starting, I guess, almost a decade ago, really, in fairness, because, they're, Sean, Zach are 24, 25 years old at this point. Maddox is just 20 now, but he will be turning 21 soon. So, it does make a lot of sense that influencing has kind of been around for a minute. I just find it interesting how much and how rapidly it's changed. I guess I remember when YouTube kind of started, and remember it, as just being, what was the catchphrase, like cast yourself or something to that effect, where, it was fun. You could put up these, videos. I don't know that I ever, at least for me personally, never saw that coming as an income source. It was just kind of like early social media. It was not that much different, I guess, than, say, MySpace and then later on Facebook, It was just a different kind of, it was just different, right? And then I think Google got a hold of YouTube, bought YouTube. And that's when it really became what we know as YouTube now. Like, it really actually became like an alternative to watching TV. I catch myself watching YouTube videos, ironically, while the TV is on. A lot of times I'll be sitting there watching YouTube videos of not even just influencers really, but just, things that I'm interested in. Drumeo, for example. I love watching Drumeo and watching, I think it's great when they take drummers. For example, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers was one, and they like have him listen to a song and then try to play it, or, it's just, it's entertainment like that. So for me, I'm not really too big on the influencer side of it, but anyway, it doesn't matter. my point is that I saw this trend, I guess, starting to unfold, but never really imagined, like, even when my boys were talking about these people that they were watching on YouTube, hence, the Pauls or PewDiePie or whoever, I guess I never really thought of it as, wow, these guys are like going to become millionaires. I mean, look at Jake and Logan Paul now, right? I mean, these guys are insanely wealthy. Jake Paul, love him or hate him, is boxing and drawing in all these pay-per-view numbers. I mean, the dude is definitely making some money. Logan Paul is, I don't really know what Logan does as much. I know he boxed, but Jake Paul obviously has more of the boxing wrapped up. Logan, I think, is more involved in professional wrestling. I think he's more involved in WWE at this point. And my point being is, like, these guys are like mega stars and multimillionaires, right? They own drink companies now. I can't remember the name of the company. I think it's what is it? Prime, I think. And so they own these energy drink companies. They're involved, right? And it was just like these were these content creators on YouTube that have somehow now just blown up into what we see them now, and it's insane. And I never thought for a minute that influencing, right, would be like a thing, like this would be a thing. And the reason I'm kind of bringing this up too is because fast forward to present time. So, forgetting about that, but just also it's the ADHD part of this show, right? You wouldn't get vertigo and your head wouldn't spin if I didn't have to tell you the whole timeline, right? I mean, go back and listen to the episode with Kelly Planet ADHD and you'll kind of get a glimpse into that. But before I digress too far and we get really down a rabbit hole, one of the reason that this topic came up for me is I feel like I've seen in the news a lot lately that there has been a fair amount. I don't want to say a lot because I don't know what a lot is in regards to the percentages, right? But it's enough to make the news. And it feels like there is a lot of influencers who have died. And a couple have been suicide, from what if I'm remembering the articles right. And here's the irony, actually. I was doing research for this topic, for the show today. And I started Googling influencer deaths, how many influencers have died, how many influencers. And it's funny because I've read, so I subscribe to Apple News, right? And I've read, and I can tell you that I've read these articles, and I know that they've existed. I've seen them. But then Googling them, it's hard to find them again. And I don't really know what that's about. But I feel like maybe it's just because it's hot one minute and gone the next. But I still feel like it should be archived somewhere. So if anybody's interested in this, Google it. But I feel like I've seen a lot of news on influencers and young, like under 30 influencers who have passed away. And some of that has been like due to disease. I know there was at least one or two that I can think of off the top of my head, and I am so ashamed that I can't think of their names right now because I actually did do some research. One of them was a YouTube guy who was dying from cancer, and it's an incredible story, which is why I wish that I took more time to remember his name, because his story was pretty incredible. I believe it was brain cancer, I want to say. And please leave a comment in the comments section if you know what I'm talking about. But I remember that kind of sat really heavy with me when I was doing the research because I was like, wow, that story was a human story, and that was pretty impactful. And not that death in general isn't impactful, but that particular story was like, wow, that pulled the heartstrings a little bit. But I feel like there's also been there. So what triggered this particular topic for me was very recently, like within the last week. I had read about a young lady who had taken her own life, and I think she was like 26, 27. She was young, though. And it just makes me wonder. And so I started doing a lot of research on influencing. And it ties very much in. So rewinding back to a long, like, gosh, I mean, I think Vertigo was only 5, 6, 7 episodes in. And Minna and I did an episode on social media. if you go back and listen to that episode, I have always been somebody who has had issue with social media. It hasn't, for me, always been, I think, like an interest or something that I've been comfortable with. And I've actually been exploring that a little bit. Like, what is it? What is my relationship with social media? Because I have social media now for Vertigo, and I have to be completely honest with all of you listeners. I am not great at staying on top of it or keeping up with it. Like, I really need to hire, and this is just a hobby, so this is almost a joke, but I almost would need like a personal assistant that is like 100% willing to be, or I just need to develop an AI bot and just let that control my social media, because I am terrible at it, and it's because I really don't have an interest in it. And I think that comes from two places. I think one, social media has changed the dynamic of us as a society, and I don't necessarily think it's been for the better. In fact, I'm going to go on record as saying is I very much believe that it's had a negative impact on us as a society as a whole. I'm not talking about people individually. I'm talking about as a whole. I feel like it just represents a very negative side to our humanness in general. And I know that generalizations can get us in trouble, but I'm going on record on saying that. That is very much my opinion. And it's okay if you disagree. I just want to say that. And I have heard all of the arguments on why people disagree. And Minna and I actually had, like I said, a whole hot podcast about that, where we kind of debated that whole thing, the pros and the cons. For me, I can't get behind it. I think it's ugly in a lot of ways. And I also think that for somebody who, like myself, knowingly has, some mental health struggles, I think it feeds those in an unhealthy way. And I think that, so for myself personally, knowing all of that about me, I think the way for me to be healthiest is to have relationships that are meaningful with people. And by doing that, I either message them directly through text message or call them or whatever, but I'm very old school in that thought. Like, I want to have a personal relationship with somebody and not just check them out on Facebook and be kind of surface level, and that's just me. Where this ties into influencing those, I can't help but wonder, especially when you see all these deaths, and I wonder sometimes if it's from pressure of trying to uphold this image that is just impossible, because we create personalities on Facebook and on social media. And I'm not picking on Facebook. I just want to say social media, because a lot of these influencers aren't using Facebook, and that's a fact. Like, most influencers are using another medium. TikTok obviously is the hot one in the spotlight, but these influencers are not just necessarily. Facebook, I think, Facebook has turned into very much a 40s plus generation thing. Like, I don't think there are a lot of youth on Facebook at this point. They're on other things, and so I think it's fair to say that we can leave that alone. But it does drum up that interest for me, on why is it that we have such, what is going on, I guess, and it just begs that question. And so for me, I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff, and especially when I'm reading these articles. So here's this young woman, like I said, and, she dies by suicide and is an influencer. And I feel like I'm just seeing these titles come up. They're not obviously the front page news. They're not the thing that's coming up like immediately on people's probably news feeds. These are things. So for me, because I am huge into pop culture, it's one of my, things that I kind of nerd out on is pop culture. I've always liked pop culture. And so for me, my news feeds in my entertainment section, are always kind of coming up with pop culture things. Influencing is very much at the forefront of pop culture in 2025. And so therefore, I get a lot of news feeds in my whatever. Fuck it. You know what I'm talking about. I don't need to get over explanatory. Is your head spinning yet? So I just can't help but wonder, like, what is the pressure of being an influencer? Like, what comes along with that career choice, I guess? What pressures are these young people facing? And why is death so prevalent among this group? And again, it's not all suicide. Like I've seen, so we know that mental health, suicide, like obviously I just said that for me personally, I think that there is a direct connection to my mental health and staying off of social media to an extent. And I wonder if that's true for, other people, because we've obviously heard about how bullying and all of these other things tend to happen over social media. Now, I have to be honest, because I'm not on, I don't feel like I have the authority to really speak about that, but I've heard a lot about it. And so therefore, I think to deny that it's happening is also pretty irresponsible. But just, what pressures are coming along for these people? And why is it that, we are seeing this trend where, people are almost dying over their art in some aspects, right? Some people have been in accidents or gone to other countries and are doing things that are, it's like you got to get views, right? And so how do you get views? How do you get people to pay attention to you? And I think about that kind of pressure, right? And if this is your income source, like if this is what you chose to do, then you've got to stay on top in order to do it. I'm going to rewind back as an example that I can use, because I remember, and I don't remember if it was Logan Paul or Jake Paul, to be honest with you. But I remember one of them went to Japan to the suicide forest and the uproar that created. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like if you are depending on views and numbers to make money, right? How far are you willing to go to do that? And I wonder if there is a part of this that people are sacrificing their mental health over it, and getting themselves into this, just getting themselves into this space, and then you're almost in too deep, I guess, before you can come out of it. I don't know. That's just kind of my ramblings on it. It's been one of those things that's been on my mind, and I just don't know. I need to come back with some statistics, but I guess what I'm saying is I can identify with the dark places, I guess, that could bring people, because that's one of the reasons why I stay off of social media. But social media is also ingrained into our society to a point where it's really difficult to kind of stay out of it. And then, like I said, if you've taken it up to say, like, how do I make money? And that's a hard thing. Like and this is another thing. I don't know, like, if I was in high school right now in 2025 and somebody said, what are you going to do after high school? It's like, I feel like that's a really difficult thing to answer. And, especially I imagine influencing as much how I wanted to be a rock star when I was 15, 16 years old. So I imagine that people saying I want to be an influencer like that, I don't know. It's tough. I can't imagine the pressures, I guess, is all I'm saying. And it just is kind of wild and crazy. But anyway, I think I've digressed. But I think the important part in the message that I want to give to this kind of section that I'm talking about, and then we're going to move on, is I think I want there to be a message of you've got to tie a knot and hang on. And that came up. So last week, if you didn't get a chance to listen to that episode, Ashley was here. Ashley, Alex, Minna all joined me on the pod, and we had a great discussion about Ashley's journey and her now, taking care of vintage clothing and kind of doing that thing. But one of the things that we talked about is, like, you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. And so you've got to kind of hang in there, and that can be really tough. And so I just wonder, with the pressures that people have in their lives, it's got to be tough to hang in there sometimes. And I think that for social media, for influencers who are using social media, one wrong move, one wrong misstep, and it seems like the world can turn on you really quickly, and people just get downright mean, because we're not saying these things to people's faces. We're saying them in the comment section, and then people can be really brutal in those comment sections, and I know this. And it can tear you down really quickly. you know. Just as much as a good comic can bring you up on cloud nine, a bad comic can bring you down to the pits of hell, man, let me tell you. And I think that if you already are shaken with your mental health, then that can be a really dangerous place to enter. And so I just wonder about all of that stuff. So, boy, I've been rambling here for a couple minutes now, and I apologize. But I hope what I'm saying kind of makes some sense and just is kind of getting thoughts going. Because, again, vertigo, making your head spin. Like, these are just things that I think about. And I'm wondering if other people are thinking about them too. You know, so influencers, the new culture, all this kind of like, I don't know. Like I said, all these news articles, death happening. It's just wild to me. And, again, it just kind of makes me think more about social media and, you know, kind of the society that we live in now under that umbrella. And we can't get rid of it. Like, there's no going back at this point. Social media isn't going to go away. I think that we just have to learn how to adapt. But there's also, it brings out an ugliness that's just so fucking weird, man. I don't know. I don't even really know what to say about it, I guess. So I'm gonna hang it there and just say that I just can't help but wonder and encourage people also, I guess, to kind of dig into that. And I'm curious to know what other people's thoughts are. But yeah, influencing is a thing, and I think we're going to be stuck with it for a while. But how do we also, you know, how do we get healthy, I guess? I don't fucking know. I don't know. I should come out with some stats, you know. But so moving on. I'm recording this on the 4th of July holiday weekend. So hopefully people got to, or are getting to, go out and enjoy the holiday and fireworks and all those things that come along. You know, July 4th to me has always been a really fun holiday. You know, just everything that is like America, right? You know, the barbecues and the fireworks and the parades. I mean, it's just fun, you know. July 4th is one of those holidays that's definitely just a fun holiday, and it definitely, you know, and fireworks, man. I mean, I have always just loved a good fireworks show, right? And I think most people do. I think that that's a thing, or else, you know, we wouldn't have them. I mean, think about all the reasons we have fireworks, you know. So yeah, so hopefully you get out and enjoy. And so with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about my playlist and what's going on, because we have had some awesome summer weather in central New York that definitely can't complain about. And it has been fun, man, because I just feel like mood has been up. You know, we've had a lot of sunshine. We've actually gotten through some weekends where we haven't had any rain, which for anybody who listens to this outside of this area, again, I'm in central New York. And I'm going to tell you, man, we have had, I can't remember what the stat was, 29 weeks of precipitation on the weekend. It's basically rained or snowed every weekend since November. And we finally broke that curse, or whatever you want to call it, where we finally had, last weekend was a nice weekend, and this weekend is turning out to be an exceptional weekend as well. So hopefully people are out there enjoying. So here's the thing. So when, for me, all this sunshiny weather and, you know, getting to be outside, because I am a person who absolutely needs to be outside. I love being outside. There's nothing better than being outside. And I don't care, man. I'll yard work, mowing the lawn. It doesn't matter. I just want to be outside, or going to the beach and having a barbecue. Like, it doesn't matter. Again, I just want to be outside. So my playlist has been really kind of more on that uptick. I feel like I have been listening to a lot of Grateful Dead. I've been going back down and listening to some of my favorite live shows from the Grateful Dead. And I've also really started jumping in, which I created this whole bluegrass playlist as well. And have really just been like upbeat, like bluegrass too. Like, you know, listening to like some Billy Strings, Trampled by Turtles. What else? The infamous String Dusters. Yonder Mountain, Blue Sky, Green, or yeah, Blue Sky. No, Green Sky. Green Sky, Bluegrass. Jesus. Okay. Yeah, we'll leave that there. But anyway, that's what's been on my playlist. So just a lot of like really up-tempo, you know, happy kind of summertime music. just really enjoying, like I said, especially having these nice weekends, because we just don't get enough of them. That's for sure. And the other thing is, it's crazy. As much as I'm excited that it's July 4th weekend, I also can't believe that we're into July already. It's just it just is wild how quickly the time goes by, and the days turn to weeks, turn to months, kind of thing. So just trying to, I think for me, I'm trying to really just live in the moment and like really understand. People have told me that my whole life, you got to be in the moment. You got to be in the moment. And of course, I don't know, it didn't click to me until recent. Like, oh yeah, let's enjoy this right now. Let's not worry about what I'm going to be doing in an hour. Let's not worry about what I didn't do before I got to this spot. Like, that's going to be there waiting anyway. Let's just enjoy the moment. And so I really have tried to, one, do that, but two, have also found a place where I kind of understand what that all means. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at, just kind of being in the moment and doing this thing. And I think my playlist kind of reflects that, just really, like I said, enjoying these warm summer days and really just loving it, man, just loving it. So I'm hoping that you're having the ability to do the same, and really just get out there and enjoy it. And I would love to hear comments what's on your playlist, because I'm always looking for music to listen to. And as I'm sure anybody who's listened to any of these episodes with continuously, I don't know what word I'm trying to find there, so maybe I'll edit that out so I don't sound like a dumbass. Maybe I'll keep it in there because y'all know what to expect from me anyway. But if you have listened to these episodes continuously, then you know that my musical tastes are all over the place. So it should be no surprise that 2 episodes ago I was listening to like Cannibal Corpse, and now this episode I'm listening to the Grateful Dead, right? But it all goes with mood, right? And that's kind of the thing, And I'm very honest and open about where my moods have been, I guess. So, yeah, there we are. So I would love to hear from y'all. What are y'all doing? Hey, what guests do you want, to come back? That would be a cool thing for you to leave in the comments also. If there's somebody that you want to hear more from that's been on the show, or if you are interested in just being on the show as a guest yourself, please leave a comment, message me. I know I just said that I don't check Facebook that often. However, I do try to make sure that if people are messaging me, that I'm getting back to them and not leaving them hanging, because that's one of my pet peeves when I message somebody and don't hear back. So I do try to at least stay on top of that. But hey, like I said, message me. Email me is actually, believe it or not, I'm old school, man. Email me, verticalpod@gmail.com, if you're interested, have a question, want to get on the show, want to hear more from a guest that's already been on the show. verticalpod@gmail.com. Hit me up. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll go from there. And if you want to get on the show, we can schedule you. It's not a big deal. It's pretty easy. So yeah, that's kind of what I got for you for today. A quick episode. Like I said, it's the holiday weekend, so everybody's going to be enjoying that. I am included in that. So I just am really appreciative of the listener support. So wanted to make sure that I didn't go another week without dropping an episode, because there have been weeks in the past where I didn't drop episodes. And I really appreciate that people look forward to them. And I do get messages saying, hey, man, there's no episode this week. What's going on? And, it's just life, man. That's all. It's just life. It's just this, it's life, and the fact that sometimes I think I have these moments where I just crash, and then it's hard for me to get the energy up, or I haven't scheduled a guest, and I'm not going to get on here and ramble. I just don't really want to do that. I don't want to get on just to get on. So, like, example, today, talking a little bit about the influencers, even though I know I was a little all over the place with it, I have been thinking a lot about it, And again, coming back to that, I just wonder where this pressure is, I wonder if the pressure is real even, or if it's made up pressure, It's just weird. Because I think, all right, so I'm going to go on. Like, here's one of my hard things. It's like, I just sometimes, like, if I post something on Facebook and or if you tag somebody in Facebook, for example, it gets this petty, right? I tag somebody in Facebook and then they untag themselves, right? And it's like, did you untag yourself because it's me? Did you untag yourself for a reason that I don't know about? Like, it's like, for me, it creates this mental spin. It's like, okay, what is it about that makes you not want to be like connected to me in some way? And maybe that's the wrong thinking, but this is my point. When you're already in a space of, I don't even know, because I don't want to say instability, because I feel like, at least keeping it on the eye, I feel like a pretty stable person. I'm not like, I'm not on the verge of breaking down, but at the same time, I do admit that maybe my ego is a little fragile, I guess, because it's like, okay, if I tag you in this post and then you remove yourself from that, or if I post a picture and tag you in it, and then this actually happened to me too. Like, I put a picture out there and then they cropped me out of it. It was weird. And I just wonder sometimes, like, what's that about? And then it creates like this whole unhealthy thing. And then I also feel like it creates animosity, and I don't know if the animosity should really be there. I don't know if you should go approach the person and be like, hey, what the fuck? I don't know. So it just creates all of this weird tension, and it's like, I don't know. And for me, maybe it's avoidant behavior, but it's like, I just don't know how, I guess, to deal with that. And it doesn't happen. I don't want to say that that's a norm, right? But the problem is, when that does happen, it creates all these feelings, and then it creates all of this insecurity, and it creates all of this, like, I don't know, it just brings up all of this stuff. And tying that back to the influencers, I wonder if that also happens with them. Like, our ego has seemed to become so fragile over it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or it just is, or maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Maybe it is a behavior that we should call out and say, hey, what the hell? But I don't know. I just don't know where to take it. So for me, I guess, being avoidant of it, and I guess maybe that is pointing out a part of my personality, right, of avoidance. Like, I don't want there to be this uncomfortable thing, because I'm not quite sure then how to deal with it. And so if I'm not quite sure how to deal with it, then it just creates like this anxiety within. And I don't know, because I definitely am a believer, like, don't make mountains out of molehills. Life is short and life is precious. So I definitely don't want to be tied up in some dramatic bullshit with somebody that doesn't really need to be there, doesn't need to exist. But at the same time, you can't deny that, is this real? Like, going back to the comment, like, if I'm tagging somebody and then they untag me, like, that's a real thing that happened, and that was real, and it really did bring up feelings for me. Like, I felt a certain kind of way about that. Where it gets awkward for me, at least, and again, keeping it on the eye, is how then do you address that? How then does that become something that you can address? Now, I'm dealing with that on a minuscule level, and I wonder for influencers, what happens for them when they're you're talking about hundreds of thousands of views, or even 1 million views for some of these influencers, man. And I don't know, like, I know what it creates on a small scale for me with like the 3 friends that I have on Facebook. Yeah, so it's just weird, man. But this is the world that we live in now, and it's strange. It's weird to navigate, and I guess my point is, I don't know if it's me that is making it weird to navigate, or if it really is just weird to navigate, And I don't know if these behaviors that we see in people are just, because everybody's got their own kind of feeling and boundaries around social media, right? So bringing it back to the tagging thing, some people are just like, they don't want to be tagged. That's just it. That's just the underlying thing. I don't want to be tagged in shit. Like, you put your shit on your page and that's cool, and you can shout out to me or whatever, but I just don't want to be tagged in it or whatever. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to deal with some of those things, I guess. And for me, I think it's best to just say, I don't want to participate in it then, because that's what's healthiest for me. Me saying I don't want to participate in it, then sure, that's avoidance, I guess, to a certain degree, but also I know that that's what I need to do for my own mental health, right? So for me, it's like just stay off it, and then don't be involved in it. And then there's also nothing to avoid, I guess, either, right? Because I know that I don't know. Tell me what you think. I'd be interested to hear some comments on this, I think, because this is kind of what my relationship with social media has been. And, I struggle with those things. And maybe I don't need to. Maybe I just need to, like, put it out there. But it's like I don't know how to not be impacted by those things either. And so I would just love to hear suggestions. So again, if you've got comments, or maybe you're struggling, like this is a great thing for us all to kind of jump in. I'm curious to how other people kind of deal with this stuff, because, I can't be the only one that, notices things and then isn't quite sure how to address them, or maybe second guesses. Again, am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I should ask the person what's up. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. It's like this weird, like, wanting to avoid, I guess, difficult conversation, but at the same time, I can't help. See, this is where my mind goes. This is how my mind spins, Vertigo Nation. I can't sometimes decipher if it's me. Am I making this mountain out of a molehill, or does the mountain truly exist? And two, if that's true, then should I address it? And then it comes down to, I don't want to have a difficult conversation with somebody and then be embarrassed by the fact that maybe I made the mountain, So it's like, this is where my mind goes with all of these things and how my mind spins. And I know that it does lead to a lot of second guessing and kind of staggering. But that's just where it goes, I don't know. And that's been a lifelong struggle. And I guess I can't even blame that on social media. I've always, felt like I've done this stutter step of like, well, I want to talk about how I feel about the situation, but at the same time, I don't really want it to turn into like a disagreement, or maybe I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. I don't really know where it comes from. I just know that there's this avoidant behavior that I've clung to, that I have tried to stay away from those sticky situations, because it's like, I don't want to be embarrassed if I'm making something out of nothing, but then I also don't want to create an argument. And maybe I just don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, because I know as somebody whose feelings have been hurt that's really shitty. And I just don't want to do that. So I don't know. But I also know that things don't get solved if you don't talk about them. And so, here's that conundrum, at least for my mind. And so you want to talk about making your head spin. Those are the thoughts that kind of spin around in my head. And I feel like social media, and I don't mean to harp on this so hard, but I think this is why the influencer thing took hold of me as an interest, and why I went down that rabbit hole of like trying to figure out like, well, how many social influencers have died in the last X amount of years? How many have died by suicide? And I'm telling you, the news articles are absolutely out there. There have definitely been quite a few that have popped up in the news, at least within the last year. And so it's definitely a thing. But I don't know, again, if it is related to the pressure of trying to stay on top of your game, which I can imagine is pretty incredible when that's your income source, or is it society and how it's brought out an ugliness, and how people can comment and be these keyboard warriors and just tear people apart without really any thought to how the person might feel reading that? Like, it's really brought in. I don't know. I think about all of this stuff to the point where sometimes, honestly, I lay awake at night thinking about it, which is probably crazy, but I do. I think about like how we kind of almost treat one another in a way. I guess I think about that a lot, actually. I think about how we treat one another as human beings, and how like we as humans are just really nasty. I think at times we can be really amazing. Like when we come together over a tragedy, and really kind of come together on our humanness, we do some amazing things, and we've all witnessed that, right? We've witnessed that. Like when there's been a terrible event that's happened, whether it's a natural disaster or a shooting or whatever, right? But even recently, I think that even some of those tragedies have shown some of the ugliness to our humanness too, and that's kind of just, I don't want that to be what defines us as people, to be honest. I don't. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my ramblings. So I'm not going to keep you any longer, Vertigo Nation. I just really, have been thinking about this topic. I've been kicking it around. I've been thinking about the influencers. I've been thinking about how influencers then turn into my relationship with social media and where my struggles with social media are. And this is a topic that I really do want to hear more from people. So if you're listening to this episode and you have a comment, throw it up. And like I said, you can always email me, vertigopod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from people. If this is a topic that you would like to get on and actually discuss with me, I would love that. I've got the opportunity to have at least 4 people on at one time. If there are a group of you that would love to get on and really talk more about this topic and really flesh it out, that would be incredible too. And I would love to hear from you. And so please, please, please comment, reach out, email me, whatever you got to do. At the end of the day, Vertigo Nation, let's just do one thing, man. Let us love one another. That's really what it comes down to for me. And that's what Vertigo really is about, is like spreading the golden thread, right? Understanding that we are all people, that we all have our shit, and we're all trying to navigate our shit. But at the end of the day, let's come together in our humanness. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. And I hope this episode made your head spin.